Codependency is a pattern of behavior where one person develops an excessive emotional or psychological dependence on another person, often in the caretaker role, to the detriment of their own needs of well-being. On the surface, the high achiever looks like the strong and capable one. But under the water, the iceberg is actually about having low self-esteem, displaying people-pleasing behaviors, and a need for validation from being the caretaker in a relationship. One common situation can be that. Imagine you have a relationship with someone with a mental disorder, like severe depression or bipolar. You find yourself constantly checking in, adjusting your life to accommodate their needs, sometimes even at the cost of your own mental health. Of course, it is okay to support a partner with a mental disorder, but remember, that is not your job. It is the job of the mental health professionals. Or consider someone entangled with a partner who is battling with addiction. Any addiction, either it is gambling, drinking, shopping, or even work. The cycle of wanting to save them, covering up for their mistakes, fixing the aftermath, and enduring the chaos because you believe your partner will change if you love them enough. That is also codependency. Let's talk about trauma bond. It is a concept that is both fascinating and also heartbreaking. The bond forms in the cycle of abuse and reconciliation. Trauma bonding refers to the deep emotional bond that can develop between a victim and an abuser, particularly in the context of a cycle of abuse, where periods of affection and kindness are interspersed with abuse. This bond is strengthened by the intensity of experience and the victim's belief that abuser is capable of love and kindness, leading to a powerful destructive attachment. This what keeps someone tethered to a relationship that is harmful because the moments of good feel so rewarding after the bad. A classic and common example of a trauma bond is the anxious and avoidant trauma bond, particularly in case involving abuse of different levels. This pattern can be one of the most confusing and painful forms of trauma bonding, especially because it switches between intensive connection and painful rejection. In this dynamic, one partner is anxious attached, constantly seeking closeness, reassurance, and love. They're often hypervigilant to the changes in their partner's behavior, interpreting them as signs of love or the threat of abandonment. To gain attention, the anxious partner might display abusive behavior such as guilt-tripping, passive aggression, manipulation through threatening and ultimatums, extreme display of jealousy, invading their partner's privacy by stalking and snooping personal items. The avoidant partner, on the other hand, may use abusive behavior such as means of creating distance after intensive display of loving connection. This would be through sudden withdrawal without warning, followed with silent treatment for weeks, months, or even dismissing their partner's needs and communications. Yet, paradoxically, after they've taken the needed space, they may periodically offer affection or intimacy, which reset the cycle. This switch between affection and distance to illustrate this push-pull dynamic is extremely toxic because it triggers deep-seated fear in both partners. The anxious partner fears abandonment, driving them to cling tighter, while the anxious partner fears being taken over by the relationship, pushing them to create more distance, often through abusive behaviors. What makes this bond particularly traumatic is the cycle of abuse and reconciliation. After an episode of abuse, the relationship may enter a honeymoon phase, where the abuser may apologize, show excessive affection, or promise changes. This phase is a powerful reinforcement of the trauma bond, as it provides the anxious partner with the connection and reassurance they crave, only to set the stage for future abuse. For the anxious partner, each cycle reinforces their belief that love is conditional and must be earned through enduring hardship or changing themselves to meet the partner's needs. Meanwhile, the avoidant partner remains trapped in their own cycle of fearing intimacy and exerting control through abuse, unable to form healthy attachment. And finally, we dive into limerence. What exactly is limerence, or love addiction, to someone who is unattainable? Limerence is state of mind resulting from a romantic attraction to another person combined with an overwhelming obsessive needs for reciprocation of one's feelings. It is characterized by intrusive thoughts, a craving for emotional connection, and a fear of rejection. Unlike healthy love, which is mutual and based on a deep understanding and acceptance of each other, limerence is often one-sided, with the limerent person idealizing their object of affection without a real sense for their intensive feelings. Let's explore the world of limerence with example that might hit close to home. Imagine you meet someone and quickly they become the center of your world. Maybe just one date, you are dreaming about the wedding and your future kid's name. You find yourself constantly thinking about them, interpreting every interaction as a sign of potential love, even when it is clear that there's no mutual interest or connection on the level in the long run. Limerence can also happen with an ex that you've broken up a long time ago. As long as they are not available for you, yet you're longing for that connection, it is limerence. Or considering the scenario where you are in a relationship, but you develop an intense obsession with someone else, such as a colleague, celebrity, or authority figure. This isn't about simple crush or attraction. It is an all-consuming fixation where you believe this person is your soulmate, even if you are barely interacting with them on a personal level. Now that we've unpacked codependency, trauma bond, and limerence, what these dynamics have in common and why high-achieving empaths particularly drawn to them. At their core, all three dynamics are characterized by an imbalance in power and emotional investment. Whether it's the caretaking in codependency, the cycle of abuse and reconciliation in trauma bond, or the obsessive desire for reciprocation in limerence, each dynamic involves one partner disproportional investing emotional energy and effort into the relationship. Additionally, these dynamics share a foundation of fantasy over reality. Codependents fantasize about saving their partner. Individuals in trauma bond cling to the good moments, ignoring the cycle of abuse, and those experiencing limerence idealize their subject of affection, often ignoring the lack of mutual interest or compatibility. So why high-achieving empaths are so drawn to these patterns? Firstly, their empathetic nature makes them highly sensitive to others' needs, often at the expenses of their own. This sense of responsibility to care for and fix others can make them prime target for codependent relationships or trauma bonds. Moreover, their high-achieving mindset, accustomed to overcoming challenges and achieving goals, often gets misapplied to their personal lives. They might see the dynamics of trauma bonds or limerence as challenge to be overcome with enough effort or love, mistakenly believing that they can fix the relationship or their partner. Finally, the intensity of their dynamics can mimic the high stake and rewards of their professional achievements. The emotional roller coaster of codependency, trauma bound, and limerence can feel exciting, providing a sense of purpose and achievement when they are surviving another cycle of felt moment of intense connection. Now you might be thinking, my relationship isn't that extreme. It doesn't feel codependent or like a trauma bound or limerence. It's just not working. And that's exactly we need to talk about next. The goal here isn't to slap labels on anyone or to self-diagnose, because honestly, only qualified mental health professionals have the right tools for that. But let's say you're noticing bits and pieces of having a relationship with you are dating for the potential, trying to change them for the better, yet it doesn't fully align with those definitions of codependency, trauma bound, or limerence. That's where term dysfunctional come into play. It's a broader term that captures these relationships that are not necessarily extreme, but still have a significant issue. Dysfunctional relationships often live in a gray area. They are not catastrophically bad, but they are not nourishing either. There's power struggle, broken communication, and makes you question your self-worth and life choices. And being in this space can be extremely confusing. You might spend hours, days, or even weeks pondering, should I stay or should I leave? It's draining, isn't it? Feeling like you're stuck in the limbo, unable to decide the best course of action for your heart and your future. This in-between state where things aren't breaking down but aren't building up either. It is tough. It is like being in a boat that is not sinking but isn't going anywhere. You're not in immediate danger, but you're not reaching new shores. And here's the thing. Staying in this kind of relationship might be just as hard, if not harder, than leaving. It requires tons of energy that would be spent on growth, on healing, or finding relationships that adds joy, not confusion to your life. Should I leave or should I stay? That's a great question. I hope by watching this far, you have more awareness of what you have been going through in your relationships. No one can decide that for you besides yourself. Awareness is the first step in making more empowered decisions. One key question here from me is that, what do you want out of this life right now? Continue to stay in cycles of dysfunctional or toxic relationships, or look for the light at the end of another tunnel? Before we wrap up today's journey through codependency, trauma bound, and limerence, there's an essential piece of the puzzle we need to address. Many high-achieving empaths are survivors of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD, stemming from their early years. CPTSD survivors were often trained from a young age to associate achievement with love and attention. They just have never been properly loved. For some, their childhood was marked by role reversals, where they found themselves in the caretaker role for their guardians. This environment really honed their empathy, making them incredibly attuned to the needs and emotions of others, often at the expense of their own. This background set the stage for why dynamics like codependency, trauma bonds, and limerence can feel so familiar and enticing. These relationships echo the patterns of conditional love and reversed roles they experienced in childhood. This is a cycle of seeking validation and love through achieving or caretaking, and sacrificing one's needs for the sake of another's, all in pursuit of the elusive stability and affection they yearned for their younger years, but they never had. These dysfunctional relationship dynamics are, in many ways, a recreation and replay of childhood issues. By understanding that, we begin to see the path forward, not through external validations or rescuing others, by healing the wounds within ourselves. In the next episodes, we are going to dive deeper into CPTSD and childhood trauma. We will explore how these early experiences shape our relationship choices and how understanding and healing from our past can lead us to healthier and more fulfilling relationships for high-achieving empath. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.